I definitely identify as a dependent person.
And do you have any idea what is at the roots of that dependency, or?
I need affirmation and love from other people because I experience affirmation, I guess, in a negative manner. I was sexually assaulted by a female classmate in my junior year of high school. We were in the hallway, and it was lunch break, and my lunch was in my locker, so my friends went to the lunchroom, and I went to my locker. And the hallways were empty because it was lunch break. People love food.
I won't argue with that. Yeah, sure.
Yeah, we weren't even friends. We were acquaintances, if that. I mean, she'd been in maybe one of my classes the year before, and we'd said hi maybe once or twice. That was about it. She came up, she pinned me against my locker, and for the next 2 minutes, it was just us in the hallway.
Wow.
Yeah, laughing. She was laughing. I mean, I was completely powerless.
So she was physically stronger than you? And you did say it was a sexual assault, right?
Yeah. Yeah, so she left, and I was in shock. I just kind of sat on the ground, sat there for a while. And then this guy in my class saw me sitting from across the hallway, and he came and sat down next to me, and he said, I don't know who you are, and I don't know what just happened, but you look like you need a friend, and I'm willing to be that friend. And so I kind of blurted everything out.
Yeah.
And so for the rest of that year and all of senior year of high school, he was the most loyal friend I've ever had. I mean, he would pick me up in the morning and take me to school. He would drop me home from school. If I wanted to go to a football game, he would take me, and he would sit with me, and he wouldn't leave me alone. He basically made sure that I never saw her again.
And did that stay on the platonic level, or?
I think for maybe a couple of days I wanted it to be something more because he was my savior, you know?
Yeah,
but
sure, yeah.
Eventually it settled into a very close friendship. And then he went to Grand Valley and I came to Calvin, so we were 30, 45 minutes away. So I call him one day into my freshman year before my sister had left.
Oh, okay.
And I said, hey, I haven't seen you for a while. We should have a picnic or something. We should catch up. Call me back, we'll figure it out. And then I think it was the next day I received this very long text that said, Chloe, you were such a great friend in high school. You were always there for me. You were funny. You laughed at all my jokes. You were very supportive. You were the best friend in high school. Now that I'm in college, I realize there are a lot of people that are better than you.
No way. Seriously?
This girl in my class is prettier than you. My roommate is funnier than you. This guy that I ate lunch with, he's stronger in his faith than you are in yours. And it was this huge, long list of why I wasn't good enough to be his friend anymore.
And this isn't a text?
This isn't a text.
Did that just like hit you like a 2x4?
Oh my gosh, yes.
Had he said anything even close to that before? I mean,
never before that, not at all. So that, combined with my sister leaving, was, and again, I couldn't be open with her and tell her I'm super depressed, I'm way down here, because she wouldn't know how to handle it, and I would feel bad. So that is why I need affirmation, because I've had it completely stripped from me on more than one occasion. But again, I've never had like self-confidence or self-esteem or anything like that. Because, I mean, I didn't even know this girl in high school. So if someone that I didn't even know could do that to me, what could people that were close to me do to me?
So do you have like even like moments of peace where you feel like, you know, I'm good enough?
I guess no.
Yeah. And so why do you have any idea why you feel so like unworthy?
I mean, I've been on this earth for 20 years and I have nothing to show for it.
Oh, I think that's debatable.
Is it?
So has that like belief that you are worthy of love and belonging, like has that always been instilled in you or no? Yeah.
No. I think worthiness is like you come back to it over and over again because there's just so many things in life telling you that you're not. And right?
Right, yeah.
Messages all over the place. And even recently, some pretty toxic relationships in these last couple of years that really pummeled me, that just really, really hurt. And
like romantic relationships?
yeah, and you know, were really devastating. And so I think it's just reminding people, like, have pillar people. You know, have pillar people in your life reminding you that you are good and you are enough. Like, continue to cultivate that inner circle, like your kindred spirits. Who are those people? And if you don't have that, then pray for that or ask God for that. Like, don't be afraid to ask for that. I just think, you know, there is such a longing in us for some friendship. And like, well, Facebook is not our reality, right? Like, you don't have 1,172 friends. So I say like one or two. Like, you need one or two people in your life to remind you of who you are. And I think it's just reminding people, though, and myself, like, it's not about what we're doing, though, like where the worthiness comes from. It's not about earning it. It's about who we are.
So where do you think that self-esteem comes from? Like, what can we even do to like bolster it? You know?
Right. Well, there's all of those, like, write it on the mirror, you're awesome, and all of those say it to yourself things.
Sure, yeah.
But what I find is that Heather is someone who gives verbal affirmations all the time. Like, hey, you look really good today, or hey, I like your hair, or hey, you smell great right now, or I'm going to put you in my pocket and pull you out all day. She's funny, but what I find is that I believe that they believe what they're saying, but I don't personally believe it, which is why what they're saying doesn't really affect me, because, I mean, it feels good in the moment,
Sure.
but my self-esteem is not based on what others think of me. It's about how I view myself, which is not very highly.
So your identity as like a child of God doesn't really,
Nope.
it doesn't feel real to you.
No.
Yeah.
I identify first as a family member, probably secondly as a Christian, and thirdly as a friend. But I mean, turning towards people to get that immediate affirmation has been a tendency of mine, which is not the best because God needs to be first. And for me, he's not in those instances. He's supposed to be our father. He's, you know, Christ is the husband and we are the bride. He feels like a distant but caring and ever-present Lord to me. He does not feel like a father. He doesn't feel like a husband, and I don't feel him here next to me right now. I mean, I know he's always tuned into what's going on, and he's always listening, and he cares about me, and he's never leaving me. But
the touch is missing, right?
yeah, and that's why I turn to people, because it's immediate. It's right there.
You know, I think it was instilled in me from a young age, just, you know, the sweetness that comes from having a relationship with Jesus. But at times in my life, I've been like, well, F that. Like, what does that even mean? That's not satisfying. It's not a human being. And like, from what I see, that comes from humans, you know, that kind of love, affection, attention, you know, whatever.
Validation, worthiness,
Yes,
right?
value, right? Like, all of that is from human beings. But I think there's just been moments where I've been able to connect my head, my heart, to see that, like, no, you know, when people talk about the love of God or the love of Jesus in our lives, like, there is something real and true to that.
So do you have like sacred spaces that you sort of cultivate to help develop that? Or
Yeah, my car is a sacred space to me. Yeah, I'm literally sitting there like talking out loud to God, and I hope he's hearing me. I mean, sometimes I'm like, gosh, what if it's not real? But you know, I think that it is. I believe that there is a God who's hearing me. And so from what I've learned through reading, through people, like, you need to take time for silence and solitude in your life to begin to understand what the voice of God is like for you, you know? And so for me, obedience often means that I need to shut up. Like, shut up, and listen.
Yeah. So you alternate then between silence and Taylor Swift in your car, right?
Yeah, totally.
And we are not kidding about that.
No, so not.
Never too old for T Swift. You know, she just gets me though.
She totally does. Me too. You too?
Yeah, for better or for worse,
Oh,
yeah.
that's so great.
So what's a sacred space for you now, would you say?
Music. Michael Jackson.
Michael Jackson? Really? Isn't he sort of before your time?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, you know, he died 5 years ago, and I'm still not ready to talk about it. Like, I loved Michael Jackson.
What about him did you love?
I didn't like his songs like You Were Not Alone or any of his slower ones.
The ballads, yeah.
Yeah, don't like them.
Yeah.
But most of his songs were fun, and they were upbeat, and you could dance to them and forget everything else.
Did you dance to him, like in your room and
Oh
stuff?
my gosh, all the time. When do I not dance to Michael Jackson?
That's awesome. So it felt like a respite, like a safe space sort of for you?
Yeah, yeah. I think I think it was more of a distraction from the silence.
Yeah, Facebook and pornography are both still struggles, but I mean, through a variety of mentors and talks and people just sitting with me, like I think I've come to realize that the struggle isn't about like just stopping and completely changing the way you live all at once, but it's way more about building a bridge and saying like, start working on that bridge. I mean, you're only gonna get a certain distance and yeah, chances are you're gonna fall off. You might have a few broken bones and you're gonna have to crawl back to the start of the bridge, but the bridge is still there.
Well, part of it is still there, right?
Yeah, whatever you built is still there. You
Right.
can walk out to where you left off and keep building. And yeah, it is a struggle and you're going to keep falling down, and the more you fall, the harder it gets. But
Like the harder it gets to trust yourself again, right?
yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So anyway, so one of the things that I do now that helps a lot with regard to both Facebook and pornography actually is I take a tech Sabbath. So every Sunday, well, Saturday night, I shut down my computer when I go to bed, and I won't touch it again until Monday. I just leave it there.
Even if you have schoolwork, you don't.
Yeah, even if I have schoolwork. And I mean, that means that I need to get schoolwork done.
Yeah.
But I've just found it to be so incredibly life-giving.
So do you just give up all tech on Sundays?
I still use my phone, but it's not a smartphone, it's a dumb phone. So, I mean, I think a lot of what I use my phone for now on Sundays is like calling my parents, calling my sister, like calling these people that I haven't talked to in a while and trying to invest in those relationships.
Yeah. When you've created that space to do so.
Yeah,
right?
exactly.
I very strongly dislike technology. I mean, it can go from ATMs to Facebook to texting. It's
ATMs? Really? What's wrong with ATMs?
banking. You're trusting this company with your money. It should be done in person. You should meet this person. What if they're having a bad day? Go talk to them. Go smile at them. Go see how they're doing. It should, everything I feel as if everything should be done in person. Why not?
Yeah, relationally, right?
Yeah. If I have the choice between texting and calling, I will choose face-to-face. And if that's not an option, I'll choose calling every time.
Yeah, that's pretty countercultural, I feel like, especially for your generation. Like, do you find it hard to connect with your peers because of that?
Yeah, I mean, it's so much easier to just look down at my phone or to fix my button again or tie my shoe. You know, it's much easier to look over there and look at that puppy. It's much easier than actually being here and being present with you right now in the moment. It's so much easier to take 20 minutes to think out the perfect response to a text than it is to actually look you in the eyes and tell you how I actually feel right now.
And be vulnerable in that, right?
Yeah.
And because of the tech Sabbath every Sunday, because I've shut my computer, all of a sudden I just have this time. So I'm like, okay, what am I gonna do instead? Because that just leaves me with this space. But what do I do like in this space? So I said, okay, I want to do the things, like to do things that are going to build community, that are going to be the kind of things that sort of push toward this vision, like of everybody sitting around a campfire singing Kumbaya. Like as cheesy as that sounds, that was the image in my mind.
You know, there is a deep longing in me to be in this loving relationship with God and to be hearing from God and communing with God. But at times when, you know, I create the silence, at times there is fear of like, oh gosh, like, what's God gonna say? Or like, you know, am I gonna get rebuked or like yelled at? Am I gonna be punished for not having enough silence in my life? Or he's gonna be like, oh my gosh, I'm so disappointed in you.
I'm so mad I'm gonna almost take my own name in vain, right? Right.
Which I mean, that's so strange because I have this loving earthly father who's not like that. So I don't know why I have this image of God just like laying the smack down. But yeah, I mean, sometimes there is fear in that of like, what's God gonna say in the silence or in that time of solitude? Like, am I gonna get yelled at?
Well, it's interesting because I think a lot of other people would say their biggest fear would be hearing God say like, leave everything and follow me, you know, like that sort of.
Oh.
Yeah, and I just feel like you'd be like, okay.
Yeah, I'm just waiting on where. Like, that's great. Just tell me where.
Solitude in many aspects just has a healing sort of aspect to it. Like, you know, I'm introverted. I value time with with myself by myself.
Yeah, keeping yourself company, right? Yeah, I
Yeah,
got it.
and I guess I've sort of conditioned myself to enjoy people more and enjoy being around people more. But some days I just get burned out. Like I get home and my housemates ask me how I am, and I say good, and then I try to get away from them. Like, and I work in the preserve, so there's a lot of time where I can just be out in the preserve and take 10 minutes, sit on a log, just be by myself out in the woods, and it's really hard to find the right words for it because it's something so deep and so close. But like, especially when I'm by myself and alone in the woods, like it just feels like there's worship going on. Like there's worship inside of me and there's worship around me. And like I sort of crave that feeling. Like I wish that feeling could be in church for me, but it's not. But I feel it out there. And so I would definitely say there's a spiritual dimension to it. It's not just like I need quiet. It's like,
Yeah, like just being present in that space
Yeah.
is spiritual without having to actively think about
Yeah,
anything.
yeah.
Yeah, but is that regardless of whether or not you're looking for birds, or is
I'm
that?
always looking for birds. Like my eyes are looking up at the sky and just waiting for something to go over, or I'll hear something like, oh, there's a chickadee. Like, oh, there's a whatever. And, like, it's just constant processing.
Okay, so here's the story.
Okay,
So
okay.
right before we were getting ready to go out on the road with that family in the RVs, and they're really big believers in like prayer and, you know, a little more charismatic. I like to say I'm a Calvinist charismaniac. So yeah, we were all standing up at the front of this church, and there were 6 of us and then the family. And, you know, people were singing and praying, and people were crying, and people were dancing. And then the pastor comes up to us, and he's like, I'd just like to pray over the team before you go. And so we're all standing up there in a line. I was the 4th one in. And he starts, you know, praying over my teammates, and they started just falling on the floor. And I mean, luckily I knew enough to be like, oh, you know, it's just the power of the Holy Spirit coming on that person. And like, you literally cannot stand anymore. And so
Sure.
you just fall. You know, it's actually a really beautiful thing. But, you know, 1, 2, and 3 down, like boom, boom, boom.
But like dominoes, really,
Yeah,
right?
yeah. And so then he comes up to me and he puts a hand on my forehead, and there's like people behind me to catch me. It was like a team. And I don't really remember what he prayed, but it just wasn't happening. And so eventually, I mean, he's not going to like stand there for like 10 minutes trying to get some girl to fall out in the spirit.
Dad, did he try it again? Like, why isn't this heathen girl falling?
Yeah, like, come on, girl. I think eventually he felt like, well, just fake it.
I guess one thing I sort of perceive about myself is that I'm less afraid to be alone than a lot of my peers. Like I was in France last spring and we had a spring break, and of course college students in Europe, spring break, they almost seem to choose who they're going to travel with before they decide where they're going to go. And I decided pretty early on that I just wanted to travel by myself. And yeah, a lot of people thought that was pretty weird. Like, who are you going with? I'm going by myself.
And they're like, oh.
Yeah,
Yeah.
there's a little bit of that and a little bit of like, what's wrong with you? And yeah, I enjoyed it. Like, sure, there was periods of loneliness, like, oh, wouldn't it be great if I could just, you know, have some friends here and we just, you know, have some laughs and
Have
like,
some laughs. Are you from the 50s?
Yep.
Well, you are kind of an old soul, so there's that. Yeah. it fits.
Yeah. Yeah, and really, I did. I just enjoyed it, and like I really enjoyed being able to explore and like not having to compromise or negotiate. Like if I want to go here, I can go here. Damn it! Like I didn't have to cater to the needs of others.
So did you tell the pastor, like, I don't think it's working?
Well, at the time, I was sort of like praying. I mean,
Yeah.
a lot more now I pray with my eyes open instead of closed. But at that time, I was closing my eyes. Like, I don't know what's supposed to happen. Am I supposed to like do? And then I look down, and Betsy, Amanda, and Sarah are all like on the floor. I'm like, oh crap, I don't know what's happening. And so he prayed some more, and then eventually he's like, are you feeling anything? And I'm like, no. Like, no. And so he just kind of moved on. So I'm just standing there like by myself because everybody else had gone down. So I'm just standing there like, I do love Jesus and I do love to pray.
Oh, you must have felt like immediately like so self-conscious.
Oh
right?
my goodness. Yes, you do. You have those feelings of like, what's wrong with me? Or just all your insecurities, like, am I not faithful enough?
Yeah. So was there any sort of like, fallout from that?
No, not
Yeah.
really. I mean, there have been situations since then where I've been like, I wonder if it'd work on me this time. And Yeah, usually doesn't.
And that's okay?
I think it is.
Yeah.
Yeah, I do.
And so that independent spirit you're talking about, that's always been the case for you, right?
It's hard to say. It's all throughout growing up, I sort of had this vision of myself. Like, all right, I'm never gonna get married and commit to anything. I'm just gonna travel the world and look at birds, like work at field jobs, biology-related jobs, like doing bird counts and that sort of stuff. Live in South America for years and just sort of have that migratory spirit, you know? And I guess I sort of put that on hold with this lengthy relationship. Like, oh, okay, maybe not. And I guess it's sort of reawakening a bit. Like, all right, I probably won't have this major commitment anymore. Like, I don't really have a home default to go back to. So it's just, I can do it. And there's a lot of excitement and freedom in that. But there's also quite a lot of pain because I've felt what intimacy is like. And I've felt what this relationship is like.
And you know what you would be missing now, right?
Yeah,
Right.
yeah. And so, yeah, it's sort of this mixture of like, all right, this is gonna be awesome. I can go wherever and do whatever. And it's also a bit of like, well, fuck, like, this is gonna suck. Like, I could just pursue this and try to live this life of adventure, but that won't fulfill you. Like, that won't solely fulfill you. Like, it's just a shadow of like, yeah, this could be great, but it's not everything. It's not everything.
So what is everything? Do you know? Like, what would fulfill you?
I'm tempted to just give the Christian answer and just say God. And
Yeah, okay. But is that true? Is that honest for you?
I don't know. Like, I don't know if it is. I mean, for me, like, I don't know.
I'll look back through my journal from like way back in boarding school and think like, wow, I had it all together back then. Like, how on earth did I know what God was saying and like understand all of this? I mean, because now I feel like in order to believe that what I'm hearing is actually God's word, I have to take on a much more willed naivete. Like, okay, I'm gonna intentionally put these things aside that say this doesn't make any sense. Whereas like 9th grade, I just feel like it did make sense. I mean, probably because I didn't know a whole lot of other things. So now that I've learned more things, it doesn't always make sense. But I feel like that's sort of the point. Like, faith doesn't make sense. And we have to be able to put that aside and say, okay, God, like, I don't get this. It doesn't make any sense, but all right, I'll do it and say that's what you're saying to me at this point.
Like, fake it till you make it, really, right?
I don't know if that's like,
Heretical, maybe.
yeah,
right?
I don't know if that's like a good theological way to understand it, but I don't know, like in many ways, that's sort of where I fall at this point. But anyway, so my journal, ever since I started it, has been addressed to God. And like pretty early on, I decided I didn't really like the Dear Journal or like Dear Diary type of deal. I just figured like what better way to do this than to just turn it into a prayer and say, okay, God, like this is it. But I don't know, that always feels very one-sided because it's me writing on paper what I'm thinking and feeling. Still, like it helps me process, it helps me work through things, and maybe in some ways that's how the Holy Spirit is working.
That's what the dialogue is, maybe.
Yeah, like through that, and God is sort of using my own writing as my dialogue.
Ooh, wow. Yeah. Okay, that blows my mind, but I get that. Yeah.
And I do, like, I definitely feel like there's moments where that's happened, like where I've started writing something, and all of a sudden it's just like, okay, like I didn't see this before, but like I don't know how I would have understood this on my own.
I think most days people would say like, oh, she's so independent, like on the outside. But I mean, I would say that I'm more interdependent. I have the luxury of just having a great group of friends who have just circled around me to say like, you know, we'll be a resting spot for you when you circle back around, and, you know, we'll pray for you as you go, as you soar away and come back, and we love you, go for it, you know, wherever the next place is. And that is a luxury. You know, that is a gift, I think. It's a lavish gift that I have this ability to go from place to place, but it's because I have this connectedness, you know, a network.
Yeah, that you've built and that other people have helped you to build, right?
Yeah, that I feel like empowered and free to soar. And I can just say like, all right, Lord, here I am. And I've been fully myself.
Yeah, so smiling at people, making eye contact with people, laughing, it's all to a certain degree very intentional to do to other people. I mean, I know how I felt during that entire time frame between when my sister left and when Heather when I first like made contact with her. I know how awful it felt to feel like I was being ignored by everyone. And so to laugh at someone's remark, and I mean, I find pretty much everything funny in general, so there's that.
Yeah.
But to smile at someone, to make eye contact with someone when you're talking with them, I know how much it meant for me. So I try to make sure to do that for other people.
I think for me, there's just always this idea that no matter how well you know someone else, they will never fully know you. And I mean, sometimes I wonder if we will ever fully know ourselves in this life, right? But that's what makes this relationship with God so attractive to me, because it's this idea that God fully knows us and he's fully present. And that then is where this discipline like of solitude becomes so important, because instead of feeling like all alone and disconnected, to say no, like God is here with me and he's telling me these things about life, about myself, about all of the people around me. Like, and it's that transition that I really want to be able to get to say like, I'm okay not being super connected to people or even around people because I'm very connected to God. Even though that sounds super cheesy as I say it.
I think for part of my life, I sort of abused birding and turned it into a sort of an idol and just pursued that as the end. And
Like the finding and documenting.
yeah, and not like the means to like being fulfilled and seeking God through it, but just like sort of its own thing that I was doing, like a hobby taken to an obsessive level, so that's more important than everything else. And I was actually just thinking about that today.
Today you were? Why?
Yeah, because I was just out in the preserve and walking around and like I hear a gnatcatcher and like that's so cool. Like the sun's out, birds are singing. Like I'm really happy right now, you know?
And maybe it wasn't as important to document and to.
Yeah, and like this is very fulfilling.
Like the moment was in and of itself.
Yeah.
So this last weekend, I went hiking by myself. I went up to Pictured Rocks and
Pictured Rocks. Oh, I want to go there. Is that in the UP, right?
yeah, oh my gosh, it is gorgeous. I mean, so gorgeous.
Yeah.
So it was a little more than I bargained for. The snow was like up to my thighs and you couldn't see the trail at all.
It was still that high?
Oh yeah, it was crazy. But I mean, it was gorgeous anyhow. There are these like ice waterfalls and I don't know, that's just one of those spaces where I do feel more connected with God. And I have a sense of intimacy that can sometimes just be super hard to come by in the day-to-day life that's just like so full, you know? I mean, I really felt like I needed to take time away and to care for myself and to like take the solitude. And I mean, there were definitely moments of it where I'm like, this is kind of weird. Like, there's nobody here. I'm getting kind of bored.
I could die and no one would find me for weeks. That's where my
Yeah,
mind
like
goes.
there are definitely moments where I'm like, this sucks. Like
Yeah.
my feet are wet, I'm freezing. Like there's nobody here to complain to except God. So, I mean, I guess I complain to God. I still wouldn't say I'm very good at listening to God in whatever form that takes and like whatever that may end up meaning. But it's definitely become something I'm pursuing much more intentionally now. And I feel like I just had a moment of that this past weekend up at Pictured Rocks when I was just beginning to hike and it was just gorgeous. Like the sun was out and the snow was everywhere and like I was just happy and excited to be where I was. And I mean, it wasn't like I had any great revelation, like or
Booming voice of God, right?
yeah, or like clear crystal thing to do next. I mean, in many ways I went because I wanted to figure out some questions that I have about the future, and I wouldn't say those were really answered, but I mean, there were definitely just moments where I felt like content with what it was. And those are the moments where I begin to feel known. And there's just been enough moments when I've chosen solitude that I just start to get these glimpses, like a feeling fully known, but just very briefly.
And how does that register? Like, how do you absorb that, you know?
I think for me, it's just, all of a sudden I forget that I am alone. Like it's just all of a sudden I'm entirely content in the space that I'm in. Like it doesn't even cross my mind that I'm not sharing this with anyone. Like it's just a very natural thing. And I think it happens sometimes too when I'm with other people. Like I'll forget about the fact that I'm with all of these other people. I mean, yeah, I guess there is sort of an interesting, like a flip side of the coin where you have this both in solitude, like forgetting about this loneliness and being alone, and in the presence of other people, like forgetting about the fact that you're in the presence of all these other people. I mean, not forgetting about the people, but
just not being as self-conscious.
Yeah, but
Yeah.
no longer being self-conscious and just kind of being you.
I think lately I've just been really struck by, like, whatever season that you're in, you know, even if there is heartache and some struggle there, like, can we look at this season? Like, what is the gift in this season of life? You know, in singleness, in marriage, in post-marriage's divorce, like, what is the gift in this season instead of, like, what I don't have now or what's missing? Like, what about what we do have now? And what is the gift, you know, in this season?
Totally, yeah. And I think that's a great place to end for now. But thank you so much for all of this.
Oh, thank you. Oh, wait, before you go, there's something I want to show you. It's just right outside the door here.
Oh, okay.
Look at this sweet little nest. Oh, they've been building it all spring. Oh, look. It's like a bird's nest mansion.
Oh my gosh.
Isn't it so sweet? Wait, do they have little birdies in there right now? Oh, I've been watching it all spring. It's been such like a spiritual experience. I mean, it started out like this big.
Yeah, it looks like they've got like a little arch, like a little marriage arch
I
or
know,
something.
isn't
that
it
they-
so cool? Oh, so, I mean, a little thing like this. Like, I was thinking about home and stuff, and then I found this nest here. Like, here. Isn't it so sweet?
It's amazing.
Oh, I just love it so much. Like, this is a remarkable thing.